Dr. Castleberry here with our asynchronous dialogue part 2 for week 3 discussion. Let's jump ahead and I'm going to try to go rapid fire. Again, limited schedule, right? All my love and the wishes we could just keep this conversation going forever. In fact, if we missed something and you had a great question that didn't get answered, find a way to bring it into discussion on the message board. Find a way to bring it into discussion into your own writing, in projects and written assignments and so on, right? Don't feel like, this is when we talk about shifting from passive spectatorship to active critical thinking. We are ultimately looking to answer these questions for ourselves, right? And you can do that. I believe in you. We've got the tools and resources. It's even okay to be wrong sometimes. So explore the questions you're most interested in. I think you will find value in that when you're tackling things like media analysis, of which we sample a couple of different styles in media culture and social influence. John has a question. Keep in mind that people lie with signs, as mentioned in Berger page 55 of Messages. How does this differ from fake news? Oh, good swerve there, John. Both terms are used to stir the pot. Berger stirring it, right, with in tongue-in-cheek, and he's teasing us to teach us. And on the other hand, fake news is often derivative of it's intentionally misleading. So while Berger might be, he uses a phrase like signs lie to us, he's teasing us to teach us something. What we find with the fake news phenomenon is this is a very cynical outlook on the world. When we start injecting these types of terms, I'm seeing this term as more weaponized now than helpful in some ways. And I think it's intentionally misused, right? So even that term has become what we call doubly loaded, right? In that it means one thing to one set of folks, and it's used by another set of folks in an entirely different, if not oppositional manner. So that's a nice callback to our binary opposition discussion recently. It's a big can of worms, John. On pages 63 to 65, Berger provides us with a list of uses and gratifications. Another sign there. Can we see this list evolving in recent years, or perhaps narrowed down to certain ones? It's a fantastic open descriptive list that Berger puts together, and I would suggest you can fit thousands of ideas into that list. It's just more of a creative writing exercise to demonstrate what all open-coded information, or rather uses and gratifications of media, can provide the user. We have signs within signs, Berger, page 39 of Media Society. And if this is true, is it possible that one sign can become another sign within the text? Of course. And you think about something, there's a term we use called an open signifier, right? Meaning its meaning is open to be filled by the user. Something that came to mind, just popped in right out of thin air, was the Star Trek emblem, right? And not just the font of the term or the TV show or the property, the brand Star Trek itself, but the actual Starfleet command symbol, right? It's kind of it's almost like it's symbolic, right? It could be read in a couple of different ways, but it's relatively triangular shaped, right? But almost alpha shaped, like an A symbol. It's sort of, in any event, you can Google that and play along as we discuss it. But it strikes me as an open signifier. It has the Starfleet Command logo on it, or that's what it stands for in the show. But it's also used as the TV show icon. So it can be used in an iconic fashion to represent the show itself. But yet, through both of these things, not only standing in for Starfleet Command and also standing in for the TV text, it becomes a product that can be mass-produced and thus obtained, worn, or adorned by users, and then it becomes a whole new level of signification, right? Because all of a sudden the badge, the icon, the Starfleet Command icon becomes a symbol of fan identification with the text, right? So say I'm walking around a convention and I got it on, I'm wearing my Starfleet Command symbol, I'm communicating something bloop, bloop, to the people at this convention, right? I'm saying, I'm not just, here for the cheap nachos. I'm here celebrating, wearing, showcasing my fandom, right? My love for this text. So now the person becomes a kind of part of this symbol system, because now they're performing the role of fan, right? And it's like, I don't just watch Star Trek, I wear Star Trek. I am iconic in that way, in my fandom. And we do this all the time, right? Star Trek's just an example, but genre, that's why studying genre is very helpful for us, because we can learn how we use other types of symbols and symbol systems, and not necessarily within genre storytelling, but in our everyday lives, to tell certain types of stories, to project who we are, to reinforce or reflect our values, our beliefs, our culture, and so on. If semiotics refer to signs and symbols, that signs and what something stands for, where do subliminal messages fit into this concept? This is one way of thinking about how signs lie to us, right? Maybe subliminal messaging, right? We're taking in one bit of information, but at the same time we're receiving another bit, and that other bit has some loaded business to attend to, if you will. It wants to make some use of us. Nice way of thinking about it. All right, Simone has some questions. I'm going to really pick up the speed here and probably fail miserably at that. How would you explain the relationship between semiotic analysis and message intake and delivery? Okay, so what's going on? We're talking about semiotic analysis, or are we talking about encoding, decoding? Think about this. When we're dealing with semiotic analysis, we're gauging our ability to accurately encode and decode messages. And then we can, while we do it as, say, a written exercise, let's blow it back up to our everyday lives. This gets back at improving our oral communication skills, our written communication skills, our symbolic communication skills. So we've just added another layer, right? We always talk about written and oral and written skills, but how do we also symbolically convey information to others? And these types of analytic exercises, these types of readings do help us become cognizant of that, and thus we are able to elevate our ability to interact in the everyday world. Here we go. What are the importances of symbols when analyzing texts? Given examples from the text. Okay, so wanting some info there, but here's what we're wanting from you. What we want is for you to show and tell us and others these importances, and that this process of finding out, of seeking out and searching, of learning how to decode for ourselves is ultimately what we're after, because it's teaching us how to not shortcut that process of learning, but then also reacting, right? Reacting with accuracy too. What are some of the semiotics that are suggested in the Bond film articles? Okay, so Bond film semiotics, signs and symbols of the Bond franchise. You all have already listed dozens and dozens of these online. Great job there. But these can be of use to us. Okay, immediate things. I made a short list fast as I could that came to mind. Guns, bodies, style, travel, and then I just kind of stopped there because I don't want to go on and on and on. But okay, so if these are some of the larger themes, then in some ways they're translated into signs and symbols. Like we literally see these things: guns, bodies, style, travel. What do they stand in for? Okay, so when I think about, let me take them in reverse order. Travel. I think about, and we've discussed this in the message board previously, British colonialism, and how the Bond franchise is still a reflection of that anxiety of Great Britain history, right? I think of British colonialism when I think of the travel of Bond, his ability to kind of hopscotch around the globe, like globe trotting, with almost a free for all access. He can get in and out of anywhere, seemingly with ease. Western privilege is what that then reminds me of, this idea that the coded white male of authority is empowered naturally, and he's never questioned. And of course, for Bond, if he is questioned, if he is stopped, he has the means and the mechanisms with which to escape or elude captivity. Style, right? Again, Bond's fashion sense is a little. It's less even like upscale Britain. It's more almost Italian, right? Suits, ties, formal attire. And this again this suggests Western wealth, right? The wealth of Western nations. And he's always presenting himself in this type of proto-fashion. Bodies. We think about the bodies we encounter in Bond films. These are absolutely, they read to me as commodities, right? These are signs for commodities, meaning they can be obtained, they can be exploited, they can be exchanged even. Bond himself, right, is an exchangeable commodity, right? He uses, but he is also used, right? So we could say he's symbol. He's of symbol use, and he's symbol used, right? But he also understands uses and gratifications, right? He knows his life is on the line, so he's willing to take advantage of that moment, wreck the expensive sports car, or always order the most expensive items on the menu, Royal Beluga, and champagne and caviar, right? And martinis, right? Shaken, not stirred. But these are also means to an end. These bodies are disposable, so not the people he faces, not unlike the women. And that gets at something interesting I thought about with guns, right? Guns, these are extensions of a couple of things. Guns in the Bond films, these are extensions of willpower. These are extensions of masculine might, right? These are extensions of masculinity itself, okay? So they're extensions of power, politically, in terms of agency. But then these guns, they can come to be represent, and I know some of you have talked about interest in some of the Freudian terms that were previewed, not necessarily unpacked in our readings, but the gun, the firearm, definitely comes to symbolize a phallic symbol in several instances. And look no further than some of the opening credits, right? You have sort of bodies, once again, one of the examples I used, draped across, hanging from, swinging from, grasping firearms, right? And so there's some weird symbolic interplay in the Bond movies. Not at all child friendly, okay? And yet when the text itself becomes popular culture in an iconic sense, once it reaches a stage of iconicity, we sort of start to forget about all those little uncomfortable elements about that. And then we start to kind of just the text takes on new uses, new meanings, new values, and thus it starts to transcend itself, become a meta text. And so, there's some ways we can think about the semiotics of the Bond films. Okay, we're going to pause, and it doesn't mean we're done for the day. We just don't know how much further we will get. So, exciting to walk through these questions. Great questions in week 3, continuing to think more and deeper about the texts, and I'm excited to see what the future holds for each of you. Thank you.